All right, what's going on, guys? On today's episode, join me along my journey as I replace a water pump. The way I'm doing it will work for any Ford Explorer, Mountaineer, Mustang, or Ranger from 2002 to 2010 with the 4.0 liter V6 engine. Let's get started. All right, first and foremost, I'm reusing the antifreeze, so I got a nice clean bucket. Now what I do is I put a funnel, because if you crack the drain all the way, it'll come out of that little bolt too. So you put the funnel and it catches in two areas instead of making a mess. So I have that drain pan there. I'm gonna reuse it. Up top at the battery, two 8mm screws. We're gonna undo the negative first, then the positive, tuck those out of the way. We'll get that disconnected. And then our coolant overflow tank is two 10mm bolts. So we have one, we have two. We'll pull that off the radiator. We'll get the coolant tank out of the way. All right, so we're gonna remove our air snorkel. Now we have the two clips down here. Take that off. We can take our MAF off, take this little vacuum connection off. You can either use an 8mm or a flat screwdriver to get this out of the way. And then as far as the box itself goes, you just kind of pull it up. Get that out. Now for our power steering reservoir, we have an 8mm here. I gotta take that out. We gotta kind of tuck it over here so it doesn't spill out all over the place. Okay, upper radiator hose. You're probably gonna have two of the spring style clamps, that's fine. I have a worm style clamp and a spring style clamp, so we use a pair of channel locks, and in my case an 8mm here to get this hose out of the way. All right, so on the passenger side, we have a 10mm right here that we have to remove. And the same thing on the driver's side. It's a little bit difficult to get to though. Once you have both sides of the 10mm out, there's like these little push tab things that you gotta kind of push in and pull up on. So I don't know why they do this. All right, and then our shroud comes out. Now, before we remove the belt, I'm gonna teach you how I remove the fan clutch. Okay, so on our, I think it's 04 to 10 Explorers, the 2002 and 2003 doesn't have this. It's an electronic fan clutch. So we have to unplug our connection here. Dude, I wish my fingers would like work with me today. And then there's an 8mm here. We have to undo that bolt and kind of swing this harness out of the way so we can access the big nut on the fan clutch. All right, see, swing that out of the way. Okay, good. Okay, now the fan clutch itself. It's a 36mm nut, okay? I think inch and 16th, no, don't listen to me. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Okay, so the fork is a 58mm and the wrench is a 36mm. So you put the fork over the bolts for the water pump, and then you put your 36mm on the nut itself. It's lefty-loosey, it's not reverse thread. Mine was loose because I've had it off a bajillion times. Yours might have some oomph, that's why they put the little adapter there for a breaker bar, but it's really not that hard. So many people ask in the comments about the fan clutch. Lefty-loosey, spin this guy off. Okay, get this fan out of here. Good. Now that our fan's out of the way, all this crap is easy from here on out. Basically 3/8 dry breaker bar and the tensioner pulley. I bought a new one of these, so I can replace it now. Slip our belt off that we just replaced, and I get to take off all the other front dress that I just replaced. Fantastic. Idler pulleys at 15mm. Tensioner pulley is a 13mm. Our alternator is three 13mm bolts, a 13mm nut on the top if you have an 09 or 010. If you have a 02 to 08, it's a 10mm. And then we have one connection on the back that we have to unplug. So after we get the alternator out of the way, there's three 15mm bolts that hold the bracket to the cylinder head. I remove that just because it gives me more access to the water pump bolts and I can clean the mating surface a little bit better. All right, I mean, now you can really see how much more access we have to the water pump. Keep rocking and rolling. I mean, but that's crazy. Is this... Why do they only go bad on my truck? All right, next. I have no idea what this powder is. Salt, maybe, from Ohio? All right, so next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the water pump pulley and the power steering pump pulley. You guys can hold it with the belt. I'm just gonna hold it with my hand and use this right angle impact. It comes off because it's been off a billion times. Then we got the water pump pulley down here. Good. Okay, so at this point we have two clamps. We have to undo that one and we have to undo that one. They both have hoses that we have to pull off and out of the way. And then we can leave our thermostat housing on. We just have to undo that clamp and move it up a little bit. It'll actually help us in the long run because we'll slip the water pump into this neck and it'll kind of hold it while we get some bolts started in a little bit. So right now I just gotta undo these clamps here. And then this elbow holds water, so make sure you have a drain pan underneath it. All right, everybody, so I got the water pump off. I didn't show the sequence of how I removed it. I just used my little right angle impact with an 8mm. I figured it would be more helpful if I showed you once I have the water pump off so you could actually see this series of bolts that go around it. So just like that, we got our water pump off. Now back on the truck, I'm just taking my time and I'm cleaning up the mating surface really well. I'm going to order a new water pump from AutoZone. And once I have this all cleaned up, I'll come back, I'll show you the next step. But as of right now, take your time, be meticulous, get as much of the old gasket material off that you can. Now, I will say, on an OEM, if you've never changed a water pump, Ford originally put the steel gasket. So that thing usually just pops right off. But in my case, it had RTV and a paper gasket and all that fun stuff. So I got to take a little bit more time to get it all off. Okay, so a day later, I got my water pump from AutoZone. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a small dusting of RTV on this surface. It'll help us hold the gasket in place. You don't want to apply a liberal amount, because then it can break off and go in your cooling system and clog the fins in the radiator, and we don't want that. Just enough to say that you put some right on that mating surface. I'm gonna do the same thing on the water pump as well. It'll help us plaster the gasket to that. And then I'll show you that trick I was talking about with the thermostat housing. Okay, so I have a thin coat of RTV on the gasket. As you can see, the RTV is holding the gasket in place. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take that water neck from this thermostat housing, and I'm gonna slip this on, see, like that, and then I'm gonna let go of this clamp. Now we're gonna slip the water pump into this, and it's basically gonna hold it while we get our 8mm bolt started. All right, see that? Now look at that. So we have it slipped on and the hose is holding it, so now I can just simply start getting some bolts started. Now there's not really much more to show other than just me putting bolts in. So instead of making the video too long and boring, I'm gonna skip forward. The torque spec on these bolts is 89 inch-pounds. If you don't have a little torque wrench, the bolts are just snug. It's an M6. You don't wanna crank down on them because you'll snap it. So 89 inch-pounds or nice and snug. I'm an idiot. Do any of you see the mistake that I made? Come on, zoom in, look closer. Come on, look closer. And put the clamp on. And I'm not taking that effing water pump back off. So I'm gonna use a different style clamp that I didn't really want to use. Anywho, got the water pump back on. Guys, putting everything back together is so easy. You got the two hoses, check this out, look. Basically just slip that over like that. Boom. I'm gonna let this RTV cure overnight. All right, check that out, look at that. Boom, slip this over. Then you're really down to the nitty gritty. Installation is reverse of removal. I'm not gonna, go over everything, but the gist of it is this is how easy it is to replace the water pump on a 2002 to 2010 Ford Explorer. I'm gonna put everything back together. I'm gonna get my belt back on, and we'll take it for a ride. Got a brandy new belt tensioner here, courtesy of Amazon. I need another sponsorship. I want a Duralast sponsorship so badly. All I do is rant and rave about their products in my videos. It's literally all I buy. Wow. Okay, so once you have the vehicle all put back together and it's time to fill the coolant, what I recommend usually doing if you have a floor jack is putting it under the cross member and getting the vehicle up so that the radiator cap is the highest point in the cooling system. That way, the air comes to the top. Now, usually Explorers, when the thermostat's closed, it's only gonna take a gallon of coolant, even though 2 gallons came out. So there's a lot of air in the block, a lot of air in the radiator. It'll start filling up, but because the thermostat's closed, it's not gonna let any coolant through. So what I do is you gotta take your time. Like I said, you get the radiator up, and then you start just squeezing this and burping it. It's gonna take a long time. It's painfully slow, but if you only put the gallon in, the Explorers are gonna overheat. And ask me how I know about that. You'll see it'll slowly go down. It'll start bubbling, squeeze, 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 bubbling down, fill it up, top it off. Once you got your 2 gallons in, close it up, go for a ride, drive it around, make sure there's no leaks. Then you can park it, shut it off, cool it down, open it up, and recheck your fluids. Other than that, my water pump is done, came out great. Hope this video helped some of you, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.